at the same time. So our chairs are Professor Surajit Sarkar and Dr. Yaaminey Mubayi. Professor Sarkar is a curator at the Kerala Museum in Kochi. Previously, he was an associate professor at Ambedkar University, Delhi. He founded the Center for Community Knowledge there, and he was Vice President of International Association for Agricultural Museums from 21 to 24. He was the president of the Oral History Association of India from 17 to 19 and was on the public advisory board of the Society for Cultural Anthropology from 2008 to 2014. Dr. Mubayi is a historian and community development professional specializing in the area of cultural heritage for the past 25 years. She has worked on historic sites across India and published numerous articles and books on the subjects of her research. She received the Fulbright Nehru Academic and Professional Excellence Fellowship in 2019-20 for her research on the historic water systems at Alora and Daulatabad. Our first speaker for the day is Anjali C, who will be talking about Teyyam. So Anjali, could you please share your presentation?
Yes, Anjali.
And welcome to the symposium, and you'll have 10 minutes to speak.
I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it. Could you put it in full screen, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and hope I'm audible too.
Yes, you're clear.
Yeah, thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Anjali, a conservation architect. And the title of my paper today is Navigating Multicultural Heritage Through Ritual, Space and Conservation, the Case of Teyyam. So coming to the structure of my presentation, this research examines two significant theoretical frameworks, the architectural knowledge systems proposed by Professor Nalini Thakur and the anthropological framework of the nature-man-spirit complex proposed by Dr. L.P. Vidyarthi. So focusing on the cultic practice of Teyyam, prevalent in the cultural region of Kolathanadu in North Kerala, the study conceptualizes Teyyam as a multifaceted cultural heritage resource and poses two critical questions. One, what are the contemporary challenges in conserving a multicultural entity like Teyyam? Which leads to the second question, is knowledge system approach a scalable model for the conservation of multicultural heritage entities in India? So the research focuses on the heritage entity of Teyyam, which is a ritualistic procession dance performed to appease folk cults, often for a good harvest in agriculture, prosperity, and fertility. The performer impersonates the spirit narrating a local myth, dancing in trance with distinct gestures, steps, and facial expressions accompanied by the percussionist. Yeah. So, architectural knowledge system approach looks forward for an integrated methodological framework relating to the regional realities of the country and anchored onto the nature of heritage resource. But here, the current attempt is scoped down to the analysis of this framework within the theoretical domain and does not cover the operational methodologies within the discipline of heritage conservation. As elaborated in the framework of architectural knowledge systems, the lack of protection of a heritage resource arises from the problem of inadequate information on the heritage resource. Here comes the idea of content. What is content in a heritage resource? In simple terms, it's about understanding or comprehending heritage as a source of knowledge. So according to AKS approach, three types of informations are required to be gathered here. That is, the historical, geographical, and anthropological aspects of the heritage are to be deciphered and documented. But when it comes to Teyyam, rather than following the disciplines dictated by the Western epistemological and philosophical systems, the research demanded that the parameters for comprehending the heritage should be generated by the heritage entity itself. Thus, as an initial attempt, three major systems and corresponding subsystems were arrived after a comprehensive understanding of the cultic practice of Teyyam. It deciphers three systems, namely ecological, spatiotemporal, and social systems under which the further parameters for understanding Teyyam can be organized. So to note here, this is not an attempt to classify or categorize these parameters, but an attempt of systematization for the convenience of studying the nuances of this heritage resource. Now coming to the idea of deciphering the content, Teyyam as a multicultural heritage resource. So LP Vidyarthi's Nature Man Spirit Complex is an anthropological framework for understanding the interconnectedness of nature, humanity, spirituality in tribal and traditional societies. Teyyam, a cultic ritualistic performance of tribal origin, exemplifies this complex by embodying the symbiotic relationship between environment, the community, and the divine. Combining the idea of nature man spirit complex, which examines the interface between the ecological systems, the spiritual domain, and the human worlds, with the architectural knowledge system approach, here we try to develop a framework through which the content of a heritage resource can be deciphered. So I'll have to quickly skip through these analysis of different systems because of the time limit. So starting with the ecological systems, we deal with the subsystem of landscape, the connection between landscape, livelihood, and community in Teyyam. So there exists a strong association between the ecozones of a landscape and Teyyam. The Teyyam practices originating from the hills, valleys, plateaus, and coastal belts exhibit distinct characteristics and unique morphologies. This association is intricately linked to the communities inhabiting in these ecozones and their traditional livelihood practices. In addition to it, the physical and visual appearance of Teyyam is highly influenced by the geography and landscape. Most of the attributes contributing to the appearance of Teyyam, like the headgear, ornaments, masks, costumes, attire, and face painting, are direct derivatives of the landscape.
Anjali, could you just repeat the last line, couple of lines? There was a dropout.
Okay. I was talking about the physical and visual morphology of Teyyam, physical and visual appearance of Teyyam, which is highly influenced by the geography and the landscape. So the major attributes concerning the visual morphology of Teyyam, including the headgear, the costumes, the attire, the face painting, all these things are direct derivatives of the landscape. So the image on the bottom right side shows you how the different materials for face painting has been derived from different landscapes of the region. And also the ritualistic offerings made to the deities, the blessings and benedictions received from the deities ranges from highland cultivated products like sugarcane, tassels, coconut, to the resources from coastal belts like dry fish, toddy, etc. Coming to the performance spaces of Teyyam called sacred groves. So these sacred groves are significant ecological centers which protect and preserve several microhabitats of the region like wetlands, mangrove forest, lake, river, and garden lands within. There are several groups of streams originating from the sacred groves, and there are many rare botanical and fauna species which these kind of sacred groups protect within themselves. Also, there are several ecological and agrarian narratives embedded in its performance, in its presentation and performance. Like, for example, the Teyyam ballads included the detailed narrations of modes of production, forces of production, production process and agricultural activities, hunting, maritime and hinterland trade, products and goods of exchange, system of taxation, trade routes, etc. When it comes to the spatio-temporal system, there are interesting parallels derived from the time and space of Teyyam performance. One is the occasion of Teyyam performance corresponded to the agricultural harvest period of the region. And the second is that the context of Teyyam performance corresponded to the production landscapes of the region, which respectively reflected the spatial and temporal associations of Teyyam to its geography. And a particularly underexplored aspect of Teyyam is the spatiality of it. Analysis of the spatiality of Teyyam ranges from the understanding of its ephemeral character of a sacred group during and off the performance to the comprehension of the personal space of a performer. Another aspect of the spatiality is that the Teyyam deities are tenacious beings. Teyyam deities often transcend the physical limits defined by a sacred shrine and operate outside the domains of these conventional sacred spaces and also traverse physical and metaphysical territories. So the transmigration is an important aspect of the spatiality of Teyyam. Next is the idea of land rights in Teyyam. So Cherujanmam is a sacred geography assigned to each Teyyam performer and his lineage, outside which they are not allowed to render their service or receive their compensation from. So each Teyyam performer is assigned to his own geography forever. So performing Teyyam outside this designated ritualistic territory will lead to things like expulsion from the community, etc. So there are several contemporary deliberations on this, which we'll be dealing towards the end of this paper. Now, finally, coming to the social systems, there exists a strong social hierarchy in Teyyam, which is activated during the Teyyam performance. Otherwise, it is reflected in the setup of socio-religious administrative centers for diverse communities worshipping the Teyyam deities. So there are these administrative divisions of sacred territories, which are done based on the hierarchy. So on land, we can find these kind of administrative divisions, which are based on the social hierarchies. And apart from this, there are also interesting parallels drawn between the hierarchies in the agrarian and ritualistic domains of Teyyam. So when you take each community or social groups, their role in their agrarian realm and their role in the ritual realm has been parallel. So this is an interesting parallel which has been derived from the social systems related to Teyyam. Now getting on to the question of so that largely outlines Teyyam as a multicultural entity where there are connections with respect to intangible systems, human systems, tangible systems, and understanding it as a repository of knowledge. Now coming to the question of what are the challenges in conserving such a multicultural entity like Teyyam? So the existing legal measures of protection largely addresses the umbrella concept of intangible heritage and does not respond to the nuances of a multicultural entity. So when it comes to the UNESCO's protection measures for folklore, it started with the idea of drafting a model provisions for the national laws on the protection of expressions of folklore, and finally ended up in a collaboration with the World Intellectual Property Organization, and the deliberations were moving towards who owns the heritage. So it was starting from the protection, it moved towards the ownership of heritage. And even if you take the idea of UNESCO, it covers the larger umbrella of intangible heritage and forgets the nuances of it. To a certain extent, the INTACH goes beyond the scope defined by the UNESCO in protection of ICH. But the on-ground realities when it comes to an entity like Teyyam, it becomes much more complex. Like the contemporary challenge facing the heritage resource of Teyyam is not the threat of its extinction, but its shift from the ritualistic space driven by overexposure and disruptions in the tourism sector. So the captivating visual pageantry of Teyyam attracts photographers, bloggers, cultural enthusiasts, all of them to it. And Teyyam gets widely photographed and published in social media, which is a very recent phenomenon. Several Teyyam enthusiasts outside Kerala, North Kerala, Kerala, and even outside India wants to engage with the performance. So this has resulted in recent attempts to stage the Teyyam performances at foreign countries like Middle East, Dubai, Ajman, etc. So it has sparked a significant outcry, which is again a very recent outcry among the local community who opposes the uprooting of this divine practice from its ritualistic context and its exhibition in foreign territories. So the shift of Teyyam from its caste-bound, kinship-bound domain to a democratic secular spaces is it's a positive thing according to the research. But then the movement of this or the shift from this caste-bound space to a democratic space is currently at stake, largely due to the ignorance about its ecological, social, spatial, and temporal systems which are integral to it. So considering these factors, it becomes evident that comprehending the contemporary threats and complex challenges faced by this heritage entity necessitates the integration of multiple disciplines and adoption of a holistic approach in conserving it. So coming back to the question of, is knowledge system approach a scalable model when it comes to the protection of a multicultural entity? So this paper argues that in order to conserve a multicultural heritage resource like Teyyam, it is crucial to adopt an integrated interdisciplinary approach that recognizes both tangible and intangible heritage systems embedded within it. Only after realizing the underlying layers of complexities within a heritage entity can we strategize a plan of action for its protection. The knowledge system approach provides a useful framework for comprehensively documenting and conserving such cultural practices, ensuring that future conservation efforts remain rooted in local knowledge while accommodating the contemporary challenges, which are the results of globalization, changing socio-political context, and environmental shifts in it. So, through this exploration, the paper contributes to broader discussions on how conservation strategies can address the challenges of multiculturalism in India, putting forward Teyyam as a nuanced case study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anjali. So our next speaker, Somendra, has not been able to join us. So we'll have the session, Aparna's presentation next. Aparna, could you please share your screen?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Aparna Pandey. I'm currently a professor in KJ Somaiya Institute of Management. And interestingly, I'm sort of focusing on storytelling today because I think, heritage and stories go well together. But unfortunately, like Anjali also said, over commodification and overexposure also does make a lot of difference because, say, for instance, uh, I show you this place. This is one of the corners, not exactly corners, but one of the lesser known places in Kumaon. I don't know how many of you have gone there. I belong to Kumaon. So, if people visit this temple, which is Bejnath temple, and, you have a guide and he tells you about Katyuri dynasty and that architecture is Nagara style and is Shaiv Hinduism, which is practiced, and a lot of other things about the temple. That would be one way of looking at it. But another way is if you take me, I take you to my home and I take you to those smaller, temples around. I make you taste the cuisine and I tell you small stories which I have heard from my grandfather and my uncles and everyone, that when you walk during the hills, you can pick up certain plants. If you sniff, they'll make you sneeze, clearing your entire windpipe. If I take you to, taste a black soya dal, then, it'll tell you how much of iron and calcium you are taking because of it being cooked in iron kadhai and things like that. That value adds to your entire experience. And that's why I feel that, today, a very large part of conservation of not only the history and the architecture and all, today we as discerning people are looking at experiences in tourism, experiences in knowing our heritage or the heritage of the people around us in a much more different way. What's in a story? There are people, there is a place, there are events, and their time, and the core to it is the human truth which we look for. What was it that people, if I walk into a place, then I want to feel the place. So a guide will tell me a lot of things, but if I have a person telling me something beyond the ordinary, something beyond which connects with me, I will go back either in time, I'll make it contemporary, I'll make it a very different, it'll be an experience which is immersive, which I'll share with you because I spoke to a number of people besides myself who have been doing a lot of this, traveling with the storytellers. And I know my own experience, but I spoke to all kinds of people. I have some of those, So basically, stories provide us context and emotion. And a powerful story and an effective storyteller makes a lot of difference. And it does give you great results. It also captures your attention and behavior, and it promotes connection and some kind of an empathy. So there is an idea, there is an impact of the story, there is a message which goes, there is an inspiration, and there's always a chief protagonist. So if I go to, I remember, when Asiad village was being built in South Delhi, and we were just standing on the rooftops, and I have an uncle who is an archaeologist. He said this is one of the seven Delhis, and then he brought out a book and he told me all about, the seven Delhis. I was very young that time. It's 82, so 80, 81 is the time. So the stories, and I still connect to a lot of those stories, because I feel that whenever I look at the Asiad village today, I always think of how he told me and what it was and what's going to mean to all of us. So, the mind is the target, or because you're trying to connect, you're trying to tell about the history, the architecture, everything, but the heart is the bullseye. And a storyteller, the new age storyteller that I've called them, they want you to feel what they feel. So, when you go to Lucknow for an experience, so you have this gentleman who'll take you around, and he'll take you to take the winter special sweets, and he'll take you to a lot of other places, which gives you the feel of a place. So you will have that Akbari Darwaza in Chowk. You go in, and he'll tell you all about the Gota Gali and the khaddas where all the chicken work is being made. He'll make you interact with those people, and he'll give you an immersive experience, which is very different than if you go to simply Imambara and listen to what the guide is saying. So like, it has a personality. It's like a journey. So you begin with something and you end with something. And action oriented, authentic, unique. Because if I'm telling you a story about Bajnath, and I take you to Garanath, and I take you to those houses, every time when I'm weaving that story, maybe it's in a different way, because the group is different, the individual is different. It's not a repetitive narration which I'm doing. I'm making it a more personalized experience. And you have the aha moment. Yes, I may connect to one thing, somebody else connects to, and then the question starts. It's a very interactive session. When conversation, it's not a session, it's rather conversations that we're having with all the people that we have over there. Moving on. Now, who are these storytellers? Now, today, as I said, these are not Raju guides. They are not the person. You go to Agra, you have the Taj, and you have the guide comes, ma'am, I'd like to take you through. And you have another person. So if two of our friends, this time we did, last time we did this experiment, two of our friends, we took two different guides, and we wanted to see how was it different. So the narration was the same. Maybe an individual style was there, but the content of the narration was more or less the same. However, we in Delhi itself, Sohail Hashmi is a well-known name, and if you take a walk, it is amazing the way he interacts with you on a different level. It's not only heart, but it's also head, because we are not going in. I know it's more expensive. I know some people said it's an expensive thing, but yes, with that expensive thing, which is attached to the money which is attached, it's very different. The khaki tours in in Mumbai, for instance, the Bharat Ghatoskar, I have a 63-year-old friend who said that I walked through those places. I have been through those places. I've seen all those buildings. But, when after taking that walk, I started looking at them in a very different way. I could associate a lot of it. So the storyteller in the person who this person knows the place, the history, the ramifications. And because they have a background, most of them have a history, art, history. Some of them are lawyers, some of them are engineers as well, but they're good repertoires, they're good storytellers. They have a number of anecdotes and connection stories. I remember one, in Lucknow, he told me there is a garlic kheer which was prepared in the Nawab's times, and there are just a few people, and then he took me to one of these places, one of those places where it was prepared. Now, I'd never heard, if you eat it, you'll never realize it's garlic, and garlic as a sweet dish is something which it was difficult for us to imagine. You contemporize it, generalizing it with food, culture, art, and history for all audiences, because they know and study the art and history of a place. So that makes a difference. So what is it different from a regular guide? What is a heritage storyteller? A guide normally is a trained person. Archaeological Survey of India or the other places, the tourism department have trained these guides, and but they have the scripted story, which is very similar because they have a trained approach to it. The style specific, I may have a different style, you may have a different style, but then they have fixed itinerary stops. There's no time to wander around. It's a very commercialized narrative. Whereas with a heritage storyteller, it gives you a experience because which is beyond the mundane, about a life with those days, what people were eating, the wonder of the architecture, the old story, the mystique. So I have somebody like Sangeeta Joshi, who is 56, 57. She says, wherever I go, I take a storyteller around with me, and it gives me a slice of life. I go to Banaras, they take me to all the gullies, they'll give me the Ganga and the Ghats, they'll also take me with stories, songs, and it's an engaging, immersive experience, inclusive information about the place, themes, thematic walks are there. So you have a Basu Chatterjee walk, which is coming. Okay, Basu Chatterjee may be not a heritage walk per se, but then you're connecting with people. Audience interaction, there's a fusion of the past and the present. So these are some of the people I interacted with, and I asked them about what was their experience. So, they said a good heritage walks goes beyond it. We have to have stories, has to be about life. There's a local flavor, there's a local history. Banaras, it got me ghats and gullies, Bismillah Khan, new hotels, home, Daulat ki. It was an all-encompassing, feeling where architecture was there, old stories, mystique of the river, the mystique of the city, the mornings of Banaras, boatmen. It was great. It was engaging, inclusive information about the place, experience about life. Audience interaction made it all very different by added values, by putting in snippets to the stories. So you have Ratna 65. She's also done a lot of heritage walk. She said the experience is immersive and engaging. You connect in a different way to a place. Radha, again, you spend a lifetime looking at everything around. Then comes a day when you pause. You connect everything with stories. You have a new perspective to things. These are younger age group, 20 to 25, 25 to 35. Atmosphere, mix of learning, relaxation, discovery, rediscovering a place, rediscovering the essence of a place, personal touch, the depth of engagement. And we got, so they've talked about, the I Am Ahmedabad logo is a jharoka from Sidi Side Mosque. Who would tell, which guide would tell you, because they're connecting. These are MBA students, so some of them I interacted with. Mysore Palace, you uncover the rich untold stories. Then khaki tours, places I would pass without thinking twice, now developed a personality with all the stories that the person who took us for the walk took me. History to life, walking through the place, you connect, you explore everything which is very close by. In Lucknow, you have some of the traditions which I was unaware of. Walk through those places, the relics. Jaipur, freedom to wander, discover hidden corners. A fusion of the past and the present. Then there are certain others. You blend tradition with modern life. Old Delhi heritage walks. I was captivated by the busy street, historic Havelis, and the rich variety of street foods. So interacted with the shopkeepers, a lot of other things. Jaipur walk. We're paying a little extra, but we are also hearing unheard stories. The best part was that we were able to identify the historic remains by ourselves, which made us curious to know. Elephanta caves, it wasn't just narrating facts. We are weaving stories. Lal Bagh Palace in Indore, differentiating memory I had. So exchange numerous new perspectives and thought. Telangana, and intricate carvings made it one-sided. Like it was an immersive experience where It made me realize how much more there is to a city when you step off a typical tourist path, and these are the ways which people connect to. Ramzan Heritage Walk, for instance, you have in Bhopal. So a lot of these. So now these are some of the walks which are there. The Delhi Heritage Walks, Surekha Narayan, Sohail Hashmi. I've taken a couple of them. So they are very, very engaging and immersive. I've taken with friends, though. So here, this is all about Bangalore. Bangalore people do a lot of walks. They have that food walk. They have a breakfast walk. They have even the Cubbon Park, etc. They even tell you about, Lord Cubbon, if how his legs are there on the horse, and if the legs are like this, that means he was there in the battlefield. Those small snippets which probably the guide won't tell you. Then you have the khaki tours, which is my personal favorite because I'm in Mumbai, and I think they have really made a difference. They call themselves, Bharat calls himself a heritage evangelist, and he really wants to revive history in nooks and corners of Mumbai. Even a milestone, he has a story around a milestone. Then you have the food and heritage walks, and you have Banaras. Banaras has the flavor of Banaras is very different. I fortunately have traveled there with people who are from Banaras. Yeah. I'm just ending. So
Yeah.
if I'm running out of time. Yeah.
Yes, please.
So Banaras is another one. Then Ahmedabad is another place. You have Jaipur. You have this is again Lucknow for you. And this interesting latest. This is my last slide. There's a Hastashilp Kala village in Manipal, which has been built by an individual with his personal savings, and now a lot of NGOs and all are helping him out. Interesting thing is when I took the walk, I had the gentleman who has created, I think it's Mr. Shinoy. He took Shinoy or Mr. Shetty, forgetting his name. He took me around. He told me the story of how he collected the artifacts and the pillars and even the wood carvings and all from different places, different homes of individuals, and how he has created this village. And it's it's a museum come an experience, I would say. So here he was, so the experience of the guide plus was so different from he himself, because he brought in a heart to it. He brought in a heart to the story. Thank you so much. My whole perspective was that how guides would be different and how a heritage walk would be different. What is the perspective of the people who take these walks, and why we don't mind taking a heritage walk vis-a-vis a guide which has been a very run-of-the-mill thing, because these people are not only preserving history, but they're also preserving a way of life. They're making us connected, because as we spend time, more and more history is being sort of in reconstruction, and a lot of those things are happening. So it makes a lot of difference if you have these people, and they are the new age storytellers for me, per se. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll stop share.
Yes, please, Aparna. Thank you very much. Our next presentation will be by Oishi Biswas, who will be talking about Bengal's riverine heritage. Oishi, if we could please share your screen.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Just a minute. Sorry. I'm unable to present the screen. Can you please just a minute? Yeah. Is it okay? Is my screen visible?
We can see your screen, Oishi, but we can't see it properly. Could you put it on full screen mode?
Yeah, sure. I think it's okay now.
Oishi, we see both your video and your presentation. Your share screen. Could you switch off your video from there?
Yeah. Actually, I am unable to do it. So can I continue in this mode? Is it okay? Actually, performance also. So
Okay, you can, but it's possible if your content may not be completely visible to all the participants.
okay, okay. Yeah, I guess it's okay now.
Yes, we can
Yeah.
see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have 10 minutes, Oishi?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Good morning, all, and my respect to the chair, and especially to Dr. Multicultural ma'am. It's really a pleasant surprise to see you again. So, it is indeed an honor to present at this prestigious conference representing the rich cultural legacy of Bengal. I currently serve as the museum assistant, museum curator of Chandanagar College Museum, a role that allows me to immerse myself daily in the preservation and promotion of our shared heritage. I am the youngest founding member of Hooghly chapter and have been associated with INTACH for over 8 years. Unfortunately, just 2 days before my journey, I injured my ligament in an accident and lost hope. From the hospital, I promptly informed INTACH of my situation and they graciously rescheduled the session to accommodate a virtual presentation. It was truly a dream come true, and I am deeply indebted to INTACH to make this possible. So today I am privileged to present a topic that resonates deeply with the very essence of Bengal's cultural identity, Bhatiyali Sangeet. For the first time, I am venturing beyond the realm of architectural heritage, and I owe it all to my mother, Srimati Mubayi, who has dedicated over 2 decades to the noble pursuit of reviving lost songs from the hidden corners of Bengal. So Bhatiyali Sangeet is not just a genre of folk music. It is the soul-stirring voice of the boatmen of Bengal, echoing across the rivers. The word Bhatiyali originates from the word Bhati, which means ebb or downstream, reflecting the nature of the songs, which often carries themes of longing, love, and the majestic yet melancholic beauty of the riverine landscape. These songs are deeply rooted in the lives of fishermen and the boatmen, offering a poignant glimpse into their struggles and the tranquil yet turbulent water they navigate. The cultural significance of Bhatiyali Sangeet extends beyond mere entertainment. It is an integral part of Bengal's musical heritage, encapsulating the essence of riverine life and the human condition, as seen through the eyes of those who have lived their lives on water. The preservation of this art form is thus not merely an act of cultural conservation, but a vital endeavor to keep the story alive, the emotions, the histories, and of an entire community. The themes revolve around nature, love, separation, and the longing for homes and the omnipresence of river in the lives of the boatmen. In West Bengal, Bhatiyali varies significantly the influence of Baul and Kirtan is distinctly evident. Meanwhile, in Howrah, closer proximity to Kolkata introduces a modern touch both in dialect as well as in melody, reflecting a contemporary influence in this region. So, if we see in Bangladesh, the Bhatiyali Sangeet exhibits a rich cultural content, rich lyrical content, and vocal vibrations, often incorporating local dialects. The influence of rivers like Podda and Meghna and Jamuna is evident here. If we're moving further east to Assam and Tripura, we encounter yet another variation of Bhatiyali. Here, the music reflects the vibrant yet contemplative nature of rivers Brahmaputra and its tributaries. The lyrical content in this region often incorporates Assamese and Tripuri dialects, and the instruments used, such as Bahi and Pipa, lend a distinctive sound to the music. In Tripura, the songs are influenced by tribal music with instruments like the somui and kham, adding a unique infusion of Bhatiyali and indigenous sounds with tribal influence. If you see, when comparing Bhatiyali Sangeet across West Bengal, Assam, and Bangladesh, we observe difference in tempo, instrumentation, and lyrical content. While West Bengal's Bhatiyali, the tempo is slower and more melancholic. Assamese versions is faster with a preference for wind instruments. Similarly, in Bangladesh, the lyrical content is richer and more varied, with a greater emphasis on vocal modulation, on vocal techniques. These differences highlight the adaptability and regional specificity of Bhatiyali music, making it a truly diverse cultural heritage. The choice of instrument plays a crucial role in shaping the sound of Bhatiyali Sangeet. While West Bengal favors the harmonium and tabla, Bangladesh prefers the ektara and dotara. And Assam and Tripura use their indigenous instruments like pipa and simui. And if we see the differences, I want to see the differences which differ according to the regions. So let us delve into some bit of musical examples. So in Murshidabad, West Bengal, here's an example. Heya ho, heya ho, heya ho, heya ho, ho ho ho. Oh, heya ho, heya ho, heya ho. আমি উজানিতে বাহিয়া নাও নদীর মাঝে নাও পায়রার সাথের গাও পায়রার সাথের গাও জন্মভূমি আমি উজানিতে বাহিয়া নাও নদীর মাঝে নাও. This is on Karfa, and here we can see they're longing for their homes, for their beloveds. And if we see in Nadia's version, in Nadia district of West Bengal, তোমায় কহলে তুহলে বন্ধু আমি নামলাম জলে আমি কাহাটা হইয়া রহি নাহি বন্ধু তোমার পথের তহলে আমি নামলাম জলে. Here the tone of kirtan is noticed, and if we see how it is sung in Bangladesh, ফান্দে পড়িয়া বগা কান্দে রে. The same sound, the same melancholic tone like the Murshidabad version, but here you can see the voice modulation, the use of local dialects. And if we noticed in Hooghly, here it's kind of like oh কাজল ভমরা রে কোনদিন আসবেন বন্ধু কয়া যাহা রে. Here the tone is more modern, and you can see it is more proximity. It is very proximal to Kolkata. So here you can see the uses of modern Bengali, the normal Bengali which we use usually. So I just wanted to showcase the differences. It varies according to the region. So in Bhatiyali, it's not just a music. It's for me, it's just it's a soul of the Bengal's Reverine culture. Its preservation, it not merely a cultural imperative, but a duty we owe to future generation. The transformation of Bhatiyali from a mode labeled as low culture to a sophisticated and highly praised element of high culture is a testament to its enduring appeal and significance. Thank you all for your time and attention.
Um, Thank you very much, Oishi, for that lovely presentation. I now request the chairs to share your comments with us, and we can then take questions after that.
Yaaminey, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, Surajit. Can everyone hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate all the presenters today. We learned something new. It was very, very nice and enlightening to hear all your presentations, and the topics also were certainly something very relevant, and they encompassed areas where a significant amount of work can be done, definitely needs to be done, but research is also about looking at the realm of the possible, and not only the probable, right? I mean, so let's starting with Anjali's presentation. Is Anjali still here or has she left? Okay.
Anjali's here.
Okay. So Anjali, it was definitely an eye-opening and a very, very interesting presentation on Teyyam. Teyyam normally, is looked upon from a very anthropological or looking at it from a cultural perspective, sometimes even from the psychology of it, from the psychological aspect, right? But it was very interesting to hear you speak about the spatiality of Teyyam and the importance of the spaces. So yeah, I mean, definitely, your objectives were well defined. Your methodology was also, I think, quite clearly given out. The two models you were looking at. Yeah, that was well done. And I think that if you're able to, complete the research, I mean, we just got to hear a very small version of your actual research project, but if we could follow up, I'd be very interested to look at your project and see how it was going. Find out about the sources that you were using. That was an area, where we had only a limited view of what kind of sources you were looking at. Yeah, I think it will be a very significant contribution to the field of conservation, especially looking at Teyyam from a multicultural and a multidisciplinary perspective. Aparna, I think your topic was certainly delightful and also and it was presented in a very engaging manner. Certainly, so congratulations on that. I feel, yes, definitely, this is an area where a lot more research needs to be done. I was just wondering, all the case studies that you were looking at, are they all your own, or are they or have you collected it from other people as well?
I started by collecting my own because I have traveled across India.
Yeah.
I really like to travel, and I really, try and understand the history, the flavor of the place.
Right.
Once I finished my own case studies, I wanted to look at what the others' perspectives were. So that's how I connected with the other people, in college and amongst the friends and family that I have. And I decided to take their experiences also so that, I could corroborate. See, I can't have a personally. And I also tried to look at the reviews. So, I said, let's keep the reviews aside for today's presentations because I wanted to have a more personalized opinion. So these people were actually people I spoke to and in different age groups. So I started with my own case studies because I have avidly traveled and I really want to. And frankly, now my next area of research is oral history. I'm looking at some songs, the traditional songs across Kumaon and UP, etc. So that's
Excellent.
one thing. Yeah. So
That's
here
wonderful.
that's why I have now in this presentation, I added the experiences of the others as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, I would be interested in knowing what are the secondary sources you have looked at, what are the published material, the sources and so on that you have examined. And because that is what ultimately informs us about how much academic rigor there is in your research process, in your methodology. No, it's okay. We'll go into it later. Right now, we have to cover everyone, but thank you very much for that. Your methodology needs to be rigorous.
Yes, I
and you need to have you need to have your parameters very clearly set out and your secondary sources very clear.
I have secondary sources. I have tried to do a thematic analysis for
but here
this.
there's a,
But here I did not present. I thought 10 minutes was too short a time to get into,
absolutely. Thank you. And Oishi, our third speaker, first of all, I congratulate you on your musical talent, apart from your research talents as well. Well done. I think that I think it was a very good idea to bring out the musical, the performative aspect, because it's only then that we can understand the shades of difference between the language, the dialect, as also the very intangible, the difference in the use of the notes, between what is, what is from Murshidabad and what is from Nadia and what is from the eastern part of Bengal. So definitely, but again, I would be interested in knowing what is the secondary material that you have used, and what is your, in terms of how you have structured your methodology and so on. That needs to be rigorously done. So, we can always follow up, but I would spend some time focusing on that, Oishi. So, but thank you very much, and thank you for having me here today. I'll pass the baton on to Surajit now. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Surajit, you need to unmute.
Thank you all. Thank you, Yaaminey. Thank you, Anjali, Oishi, and Aparna for really engaging presentations. And actually, one of the things that struck me as Oishi was performing was that all the three cases we heard today were about how tradition is modifying itself in the contemporary. But one of the things that also I am reminded of is in this whole, I'm here talking here specifically about Oishi's presentation, because there are ethnomusic studies which are looking at how the Bhatiyali changed even in the 20th century. So it would be really useful to know whether the direction of change that happened, say in the mid 20th century, when Bhupen Hazarika, for example, came in, right? And he used a lot of Bhatiyali, but more from the Brahmaputra, the Assam side, how that kind of influenced others, so the cross linkages between the various forms, if you could bring that out, it will make a completely new addition to this whole aspect of how changes are happening in the contemporary, which is also something that Anjali's presentation about the Teyyam, because I remember one really fascinating, when we were doing we created a digital exhibition at the Kerala Museum on Teyyam, and one of the instances that came up was that which you mentioned about people from Dubai wanting to have Teyyam shows across the seas. Now Teyyam, as you pointed out, is a very localized form in the form that the local people see it and perceive it. So when you move it so far away, completely uprooted from its context, what happens to it? It's a similar kind of uprooting phenomenon as happens when a YouTuber goes to shoot a Teyyam show, stuff that you pointed out as well. You're kind of trying to put it on social media, which has no idea of the context. The people who are going to watch it, so how does the context of a tradition, an intangible tradition, be brought into its retelling? Now, that's something that, again, Aparna talk was talking about, the retelling to people who are not familiar with it by people who have some understanding. In some cases, like when you were talking with the person who built that heritage villages, this is someone who actually, the kind of stories you heard there would probably be quite unlike people who are doing, even if they are kind of, I remember doing this kind of thing with students and researchers in Delhi about Old Delhi walks, Mehroli walks. And one of the things that changed over the number of times we did the walk was every walk, it was incumbent upon the person who was going to conduct it, to talk to a few more locals. So in other senses, every time that same person did the walk, it refined itself. It refined itself. There was a few more local incidents could put in, but more interestingly, one of the things that was pointed to us by a local resident in Mehroli, which I think is very important, the point Yaaminey made about secondary research. Sometimes when we are talking about intangible traditions, there is very little secondary research, but that doesn't mean there isn't any. The locals do know. And to connect locals' knowledge and their understanding about how changes have happened, in a sense, is a kind of is secondary research from a very, very different source. When you're talking about wanting to look at oral history in the times to come, oral history, there is oral history of the contemporary and the present, and then how oral history has been remembered. Oral history also, at its very core, because it comes out of memory, is subject to individual choices, predilections, changes. But that doesn't. But hearing a number of them, you get a sense of the trajectory of change. You get a sense of where it came from. So while I like the idea of talking about talking to people who went on a walk and learnt about a place, it would have helped actually if you talk to a few more people who had conducted the walks in different places to see where they got the information from, because that was a bit missing in your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Because
Uh,
I did talk to Bharat. I do talk to Bharat regularly, but the others, yes, I haven't spoken to them. So I think I'll add on that bit in my paper. Yeah.
Okay, and I think broadly, all of you are very clear on what you wanted to look at. So the objective of your studies were quite clear. The differences came in the nature of the work that you were trying to do, and therefore the methodology changed because of it. But more of it, we'll be putting it down in our comments. But broadly, that's what I have to say. And I'm really impressed by your presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Yaaminey ji and Surajit ji. The floor is open to questions. If anyone has any questions you want to ask the speakers. So no questions at all. So actually, I have one for Aparna. Then Aparna, you covered this whole gamut of people doing heritage walks and tours and similar activities in different parts of the country. So methodologically speaking, were you looking, you mentioned many of the walks that you yourself had done and you had more examples. So I wanted to know whether you had covered only those you had done or whether you were looking at others you found. And also, did you do any kind of a sample survey of visitors to those walks?
I did do a sample survey, but not a quantitative one. It was more a qualitative one. And as I
Right.
think Professor Yaaminey also asked me, yes, I started with the case studies of my own experiences. Then I thought I should include those of the others as well in different age groups, because I am in that middle age group that I wanted to know the youngsters and the people who are older than me, so that I can get an overall experience, together. So that's how that qualitative survey actually has a lot of it. And then my research goes on to, understanding the themes that came out. So that will come, in the paper. What I haven't done, as Professor Surjit also mentioned, I have not spoken too much to these people who are taking walks. So I think that is one aspect which I definitely like to, because some of the people I know, they have grown up in those places. So they have, and because of their sheer experience, now I'm telling you, for instance, like if you, I showed you the first slide, which showed a Bejnath temple and Kumaon and, Gannath. You may not have heard about it too much if you haven't traveled to that area. But if you come, then a regular person will tell you about it. But if you come to me, and because I am from there and I like to spend as much time as possible, so I know that culture and I know the specifics, and I can tell you tidbits about that place around my village, so which is very close to my village. And we have stayed, we do make it a point to stay in that house in the village. So that brings in a different flavor. So if I take you on a heritage walk in that area, I'll tell you a little more than what a guide will do, because he's a trained person, he has a narrative. So that way, I think that is one value addition which I think I need to do. But the sample survey is more to do with the qualitative inputs that I have taken, not a quantitative one. That wasn't my approach. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out one little, maybe a small piece of advice for all the presenters. Particularly something about Oishi's presentation brought this out, and which is that also drawing from what Professor Surajit Sarkar had just mentioned. Uh, do do your interviews with a certain amount of rigor. So, for example, Oishi, who are the people who are singing these songs? Who were they? Who were they in the past? Who are they now? And then, if you want to, in terms of your methodology, that will help you to refine and to make your methodology more rigorous. uh, what is the value chain that you are really looking at from the product? If you I'm sorry to use management language here, but
Mm.
sometimes that happens in the area of heritage. So whatever is if you look at the music, the songs, then who are the singers, who are the composers, then how are they learning, how are the songs being passed from one generation to another? Because if you look at the UNESCO processes, for example, ICH nominations, Molly is here and she'll know better than all of us. When you look at ICH and you look at nominating an element for intangible cultural heritage listing under UNESCO, then one of the major things you look at is how is the form transmitted from generation to generation. So all this is something that you need to, take into account, which is why I was saying your methodology needs to be very clearly enunciated, or at least wherever you got it. I realize you just had a very short time for the presentation, but work on your methodology. And like I said, if you want, my door is always open. So give me a call if you want.
That will be really nice. And I was really asking for your help and Shurajit sir's help too, that how I can improve my paper. And as I am not, this is my first time I'm venturing beyond the architectural heritage side. So I need your help, ma'am. It's really.
Absolutely, anytime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just like to ask one thing. When we are bringing in, this is not related to my paper, but then since I am in, front of experts right now, I thought I'd take the time. If I'm studying something which has changed the flavor from the past to the present, say for instance, Kumaon Ramlila is already a part of the heritage, the UNESCO heritage, list, and we have the Kumaoni Holi, which is a 1 month long festival in Kumaon. So if I'm looking at the flavor of the place, not only the content of the traditional songs and the new songs which are coming in, or if I'm looking at the wedding songs, the flavor and the settings have all changed. So if I'm doing a research on that and the way, so should I look at only content or the singers? Or now you also have some professional singers coming in now. Earlier it wasn't like that, it was the grandmothers to the mothers to the daughters. We've learned it like that. But today we also have groups of women because people don't know. So, they bring in this troop of women who are singing traditional songs. And then, after that, the entire DJ thing starts. So I want to know, will that, should that be incorporated in the research paper or it shouldn't be?
If I may, because this is exactly, I was just thinking of talking to Anjali about a similar related point. I'll do that in a minute to Anjali, but yes, please talk about the changes people are making, because you need to know why they are making it and what they are changing. Both of these are very important things. And often one doesn't, when you're hearing the song, you're thinking of it at one level, but there are many levels below the surface. And usually locals read more, people from the same region read more, people from outside the region read differently. So it's important to know these things, especially
Yes,
with the
because we
spoken
have
word.
a khadi holi baithak and a baithi holi baithak, which is a faster version and a slower version. And obviously the folk, which is traditional harmoniums, tanpura, etc., and the dholak, etc. So men, women together, men, women separately. There are a lot of permutations, combinations. So that's what, like you're saying, contemporizing the entire thing. I think I should bring that also.
Yeah, but at this point, I just want to talk to Anjali for a minute, saying that because the text of the totem that you're using in Teyyam has double meanings. There are so many proverbs which tell you about that. Like that, the one that always sticks in my head is I don't. I speak in the translation, basically saying that the person who is showing false humility is like a Malayan, like a Tayyam performer. That talks about that whole level of, there is a caste involvement here, there is ascribing a certain role to a caste, all of that happening now. And when you're doing, especially when you're talking about people making changes to language, there are many levels coming in which you need to explore, which is why to know why people are making the change, as a starting point, why did you make the change, who's your audience for which you're making the change, that's really important. I mean, Oishi can understand that, because I think if you hear about what movies did to Bhatiyali music, they picked up one aspect of it and one kind of erased all the other elements that are contextual in Bhatiyali. So that is important to also know as well.
But Surajit, you also have sometimes in popular culture, if you have an SD Burman putting in the bidai, what to that? Ab ke baras bheje bhaiya ko babul sawan mein dijo bulai from Bandini, in which the woman is sitting in a prison, with a chakki in her hand. And this is the song that she is singing, which is about her bidai, and the outpouring of grief and so on is represented through that very traditional bidai song in this film. I suppose it's all a matter of the sensitivities of the people who are picking it up. So it's
If I may, there's a book that has come out recently by Manish Gaikwad. It's
Acha.
uh, called The Courtesan. He's writing about his mother who was a wife in Calcutta, though he's now in Bombay, right? It is a brilliant book simply because this double layers and how they get, what layer uses what kind of meaning. And the Bandini song brought me into this
Yeah.
Manish
Yeah.
Gaikwad book.
Yeah.
It describes it very well. And actually, for the three of you who are talking about how contemporization is changing a particular form, just read that book. You'll get lots of insights.
Thank you so much for all your comments. Since we also have Dr. Kaushal with us in the session, if you'd like to add some comments on the presentations.
Thank you. I really enjoyed, and also the discussion. I think the chairpersons have more than kind of raised the issues and guided them well into where they have to go. But I'll enter a bit here about the whole thing of what is tradition, what is authentic. what is it changing? Why is it changing? You've already talked about the context and the layers of, subtext and subcontext in which the tradition finds itself, and in a way it makes itself viable. So here we also talked about in terms of, the nomination dossiers. I don't really think that that's the best way of safeguarding or anything, but it has its role to play, and in many cases we've seen that nomination being subscribed, a form being subscribed makes a difference to at least its course of life, if even if it's for a short while maybe, or it may go into many other directions. And it also connects that how, then say whether it's Teyyam. Now, what happens to Teyyam when a platform like Sangeet Natak Academy or IGNCA or Delhi Heart or the erstwhile Pragati Maidan, they got these people to perform. Initially, you would see that there's a lot of hesitation. The communities, which are part of it are kind of shocked at the idea that such a sacred and powerful tradition would now go and be at some secular platform. But then it is also providing a kind of context for tradition to prolong itself. And so many times it's happening when we look at the climate change, we look at the migration, we look at the displacement, we look at the job markets when people are moving out. It is not that the nostalgia of the village, of the tradition, inherently comes to them, because they also in many ways trying to move away and acquire different identity. But when these city places actually bring in, whether it's a research, whether it's a performance, whether it's an award, whichever ways it is, this whole idea of my identity begins to shape up. And then when they go back, the way of life through this nostalgia then begins to make heritage out of everyday life. And one could talk in terms of whether this heritagization processes are wrong or right, but they make the tradition viable. And there, then, whether, it is followed by a DJ, whether, it is the, people flashing their lights and dancing even to the traditional music. I mean, I think the communities and the heritage very well knows how to play between these. And again, when the ritual specialists are celebrating the same in terms of their very sacred spaces, then maybe all the sanctity of the tradition as they remember, because memory also changes. Recreation is a process which is more in terms of memory in relationship with the contemporary context, that I think so. There are many levels of what we call tradition that exists today, and so much good for it, I think. I mean, I know the critiques of this also, and I've been myself a critique, and I still do critique what I have said, but I also see the value that comes with it. Yeah. So that's what basically, and I think about the question of methodology is very clear, because somehow that we're sitting in a conference which is within the framework of conservation, framework of tangible, intangible. So our piece of advice also comes from that perspective, whereas your own research perspectives can actually be very different, and you're also trying to kind of put it in this framework of longevity of a tradition, or of safeguarding or revitalization of a tradition. I mean, I could easily see Oishi's research taking on an absolutely different dimension from this. Aparna's probably would remain more and more in terms of how to, create that space for the oral history narration, for the tangibles to become more and more relevant, and more personalized experiences of those who are visiting, and the guide versus heritage walk. I mean, abandoning of a guide may not do, but training of a guide probably is also that how you bring the two together. I mean, can you have the heritage walk specialist who's an expert and a guide to actually exchange and find many multiple ways of storytelling? So that
Definitely.
ability is also there. Uh, so yeah, I think. And with that, I mean, whatever, I've said my bit, and if it is of any use to them, I'll be very happy. And like Surajit and Yaaminey, please come anytime, call me, write to me, whatever. So the experience that I carry with me of now, what, more than 35 years is all yours. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Kaushal, and thank you, Professor Sarkar and Dr. Mubayi. We can now break for lunch. We will resume at 2:30 for the panel discussion, where we request that all of the session chairs do join us, and I would we'll be pleased if all the paper presenters also join in as audience for the same. So we'll meet at on the same link at 2:30.
Can I
Thank you.
just ask one question? There's
Yeah.
form that you want us to fill.
Yes.
Uh, how do you want us to do that? We can do it online. Can we do
Yes.
it on, or do you
I
want?
didn't get.
Can we do it later on, or do you want it done now?
No, you can do it later. It just helps to do it now so that it's still fresh in your minds. Of course, whenever it works for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. And
Thank
lovely meeting both of you after such a long time.
Long time, Molly. Let's catch up.
Yeah, I think when I'm back in Delhi this time, I'll connect with both of you.
Definitely. Please do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Molly ji. Thank you.
Thank you so